The Pet Doctor, Emerson Pass Contemporaries, Book 3. Written by Tess Thompson. Narrated by Amanda Mckibbin and Craig A. Hart.
1. Tiffany, 2011. Under the shade of an aspen, I waited to be summoned. Bees buzzed from flower to flower, feeding on sweet pollen. Free to fly, those bees. In the quiet of the warm afternoon, I imagined the sound of their tiny wings. But no, it was more likely the buzz from the electric fence that surrounded the compound. I drew my knees to my chest and wrapped my arms around them. Sweat dribbled down the back of my spine and dampened the rough material of my skirt. I glanced behind me at the double doors of the elders' building. When would they come to fetch me? What did the elders do before the girls were presented on Promise Day? Shine the floors? Feast on a meal of roast beef and potatoes? The elders' building was our finest. White paint and pillars, perched atop the only elevation on the entire compound. Aspens in a line like soldiers protected it from wind, and hedges were perfectly trimmed by the groundskeepers. Small windows like narrowed eyes, seeing everything. It had been built in the Georgian tradition. Martha, my dad's first wife, had mentioned to me once, pride in her voice. She hadn't been born here. She knew of the outside world. Inside the white building, the elders had their private quarters. I'd never seen one of these residences. I would soon, though. On my wedding night, I would have the privilege of spending my first night with Elder Ryan. I'd only been in the hall where they gathered as a council to make big decisions, and the location of Promise Day. The crude buildings where the women and children spent most of our time matched the color of the dirt paths that ran between the cafeteria and the schoolhouse. Each set of wives had a house, the order of which was kept sacred by the first wife, the lucky one. I would be the sixth wife to Elder Ryan, if he found nothing wrong with me today, that is. What if he did? What would happen to me then? There had been a few girls in the past few years who had been rejected. They'd been given menial jobs and sent to live in the house at the farthest end of the property. Shamed outcasts instead of beloved wives. Matthew, the boy I loved but could not have. He was an underling, a stray they'd found on the streets. A runaway, he'd told me, from a bad situation. Here he was fed and clothed and had a bed to sleep in. No one touched him here. He'd accepted the society as it was, perhaps had even been grateful, until he fell in love with me. Now we knew what was missing, what we would miss once I married Elder Ryan. I tightened my arms around my knees, holding myself, trying not to weep from fright. Waiting and waiting. The last month had raced by, days of my innocence waning away one by one until it was today. I could no longer hide. Everything would be bared before them. I tilted my head back until I could feel the bark on my scalp. Light filtered through the leaves, such a blue, one I didn't have a name for, because it was the only sky I'd ever seen. My father said it was the kind of sky that only existed in Colorado. I had to take him at his word, on that and everything else. If there were other shades of blue, I wouldn't know. Who knew what horror awaited me? I'd learned in the 16 years of my life to take in the beauty of my surroundings,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?